The afternoon sun filtered through the dusty windows of Pages and Dreams, casting golden stripes across rows of forgotten books. I wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, a nervous habit I developed over the years. The bookshop had been my sanctuary for the past decade, a place where other people's stories helped me forget my own. My name is Maya Chun, and I'm 37 years old, though some days I feel ancient. I inherited this shop from my Aunt Margaret 5 years ago, and it became the perfect hiding place from a world that had once promised me everything, then taken it all away. That Tuesday started like any other. Mrs. Patterson browsed the romance section, sighing over covers with shirtless men. Young Tommy sat cross-legged in the children's corner, lost in a world of dragons and magic. The bell above the door chimed occasionally as customers drifted in and out, their footsteps echoing on the old wooden floors. I was sorting through a new shipment of estate sale books when I found it. A leather-bound copy of Wuthering Heights, its pages yellowed with age, spine cracked from countless readings. As I opened it to check the condition, a folded piece of paper slipped out and floated to the floor like a dying leaf. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The handwriting was unmistakably mine, though younger, more hopeful. The ink had faded to a ghostly blue, but the words were still clear enough to break my heart all over again. My dearest Adrian, it began. Words from a younger heart. I shouldn't have read it. I should have thrown it away, burned it, anything but stand there in the middle of my shop, tears streaming down my face as I relived the worst moment of my life. But I couldn't stop myself. The letter was dated October 15th, 15 years ago. I remembered writing it during my senior year of college, sitting in the campus library at 2 in the morning, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I'd poured everything into those words, every feeling, every desperate plea, every ounce of love I had left to give. I don't understand why you left. One day we were planning our future, talking about the little apartment we'd get after graduation, the places we'd travel, the life we'd build together. The next day, you were gone. No explanation, no goodbye, just that cold text message. I can't do this anymore. Don't contact me. I closed my eyes, remembering Adrian as he was back then, tall and lean, with dark hair that always fell into his eyes. He had a laugh that could light up a room and a way of looking at me that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. We met in a Shakespeare class during our sophomore year, bonded over our mutual hatred of Romeo and Juliet and our love of actual good literature. For 2 years, we were inseparable. Everyone called us the couple most likely to make it. We believed them. The day everything changed. The letter continued, my younger self's pain bleeding through every sentence. I've called 100 times. I've gone to your apartment, but your roommate says you moved out. Your parents won't talk to me. It's like you vanished from the earth, or like I never mattered at all. If I did something wrong, please tell me. Let me fix it. Let me understand. I remembered standing outside his apartment building in the rain, my phone clutched in my hand, calling over and over until his number was disconnected. I remembered the pitying looks from his friends who suddenly had nothing to say to me. I remembered my roommate holding me while I cried for weeks, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to understand how someone could love you so completely one moment and abandon you the next. The letter ended with words that still hurt to read. I love you, Adrian. I will always love you. But I can't keep doing this to myself. If you ever cared, I'd spent 15 years hiding, letting my past define my present. I'd built walls around my heart so high that I'd forgotten what it felt like to truly live. Maybe it was time to face the ghosts that haunted me. Maybe it was time to get the closure I never received. All right, I heard myself say. I'll be there. Elena's smile faltered for just a second, surprise flickering across her perfect features. Adrian's expression was harder to read, relief mixed with something darker, something almost like dread. Wonderful, Elena recovered quickly. We'll send you a formal invitation. Come on, Adrian, we really must go. She practically dragged him toward the door. Adrian glanced back at me one last time, his lips parting as if he wanted to say something more. But Elena pulled him outside, and then they were gone, leaving only the faint scent of her expensive perfume and 1,000 unanswered questions. I stood there for a long time after they left, my hand unconsciously moving to the letter in my pocket. Mrs. Patterson approached the counter with her stack of romance novels, her eyes kind with understanding. "You all right, dear?" she asked gently. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I rang up her purchase, my mind raced. Why had Adrian really come to my shop? Why did he want me at his engagement party? And why did Elena look at me like she'd been waiting for this moment? That night, I lay in bed above the bookshop, the letter spread out on my pillow beside me. I read it over and over, remembering the girl who wrote it, the girl who believed in forever. "If you ever come back for it, you'll find these words waiting," I'd written. Well, he'd come back, but not for the letter, not for me. For reasons I didn't yet understand, Adrian Winters had walked back into my life, bringing with him a beautiful fiancée and the weight of 15 years of silence. "I moved back to town 3 weeks ago," he said quietly. "I'm taking over my father's law firm. He's retiring." The woman in red. Of course, Adrian's father had been one of the most prominent lawyers in our small town. I'd heard rumors about the old man's failing health, but I'd pushed them aside, never imagining they'd bring Adrian back into my orbit. "Congratulations," I managed, though the word tasted bitter. "I'm sure your father is proud. Maya, I know this is awkward, but I wanted to see you." I wanted to explain. Explain what? The words came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't help it. 15 years of buried anger suddenly bubbled to the surface. Explain why you disappeared without a word? Explain why you threw away everything we had like it meant nothing. "It wasn't like that," he started, but the bell chimed again, cutting him off. A woman walked in, and I knew immediately who she was. She moved with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to question your place in the world. Tall and elegant, with auburn hair styled in perfect waves, she wore a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her eyes swept the shop with barely concealed disdain before landing on Adrian with possessive affection. "There you are, darling," she said, her voice smooth as silk and just as cold. "You said you'd only be a moment." She linked her arm through Adrian's, her diamond engagement ring catching the light. The rock was enormous, ostentatious, impossible to miss. She wanted me to see it. "Elena, this is Maya," Adrian said, his voice strained. "She owns this bookshop. Maya, this is Elena Hartworth, my fiancée." The invitation. The word fiancé hit me like a physical blow. I don't know why it hurt so much. It had been 15 years. Of course he'd moved on. Of course he'd found someone else. But seeing him here, in my space, with her, with that ring glittering between us like a tiny sun, it made everything feel raw again. "I moved back to town 3 weeks ago," he said quietly. "I'm taking over my father's law firm. He's retiring." The woman in red. Of course, Adrian's father had been one of the most prominent lawyers in our small town. I'd heard rumors about the old man's failing health, but I'd pushed them aside, never imagining they'd bring Adrian back into my orbit. "Congratulations," I managed, though the word tasted bitter. "I'm sure your father is proud. Maya, I know this is awkward, but I wanted to see you. I wanted to explain." Explain what? The words came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't help it. 15 years of buried anger suddenly bubbled to the surface. "Explain why you disappeared without a word? Explain why you threw away everything we had like it meant nothing." "It wasn't like that," he started, but the bell chimed again, cutting him off. A woman walked in, and I knew immediately who she was. She moved with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to question your place in the world. Tall and elegant, with auburn hair styled in perfect waves, she wore a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her eyes swept the shop with barely concealed disdain before landing on Adrian with possessive affection. "There you are, darling," she said, her voice smooth as silk and just as cold. "You said you'd only be a moment." She linked her arm through Adrian's, her diamond engagement ring catching the light. The rock was enormous, ostentatious, impossible to miss. She wanted me to see it. "Elena, this is Maya," Adrian said, his voice strained. "She owns this bookshop. Maya, this is Elena Hartworth, my fiancée." The invitation. The word fiancé hit me like a physical blow. I don't know why it hurt so much. It had been 15 years. Of course he'd moved on. Of course he'd found someone else. But seeing him here, in my space, with her, with that ring glittering between us like a tiny sun, it made everything feel raw again. "About me at all? Please, just tell me why. That's all I need. Just the truth. I'm putting this letter in our favorite book, the one you gave me for my birthday." If you ever come back for it, you'll find these words waiting. Love always, Maya. But he never came back, and I never sent the letter. Instead, I'd apparently tucked it into this copy of Wuthering Heights and forgotten about it, burying the memory along with my heart. An unexpected return. I was still holding the letter, lost in the painful past, when the bell above the door chimed. I quickly wiped my eyes and forced a smile, tucking the paper into my apron pocket. I'll be right with you, I called out, my voice only slightly shaky. Take your time. A voice responded, and my entire world stopped spinning. I knew that voice. I'd heard it in my dreams for 15 years, sometimes sweet, sometimes cruel, always haunting. Slowly, I turned around. Adrian Winters stood in the doorway of my bookshop, looking like a ghost made flesh. He was older now, his boyish features hardened into something more mature, more guarded. His dark hair was shorter, professionally styled. He wore an expensive suit that spoke of success and a life well lived. But his eyes were the same, those deep brown eyes that once looked at me like I hung the moon. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt heavy with 15 years of silence, questions, and pain. Mrs. Patterson glanced up from her romance novels, sensing the tension. Even little Tommy seemed to hold his breath. Maya, Adrian finally said, my name sounding strange in his mouth after so long. I heard you own this place now. I had to see for myself. My throat felt tight. What are you doing here, Adrian? He took a step closer, and I instinctively moved back, putting the counter between us like a barrier. Something flickered in his eyes, hurt maybe, or regret. In your head, maybe tonight you'll finally get the truth. Or maybe you'll just realize that he's not worth the space he's been taking up in your heart. The country club. The Riverside Country Club sat on a hill overlooking the water, all white columns and manicured lawns. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway, and I suddenly felt ridiculous in my 10-year-old sedan. I almost turned around 3 times before finally parking and forcing myself to walk toward the entrance. The party was already in full swing. Champagne flowed freely, a string quartet played in the corner, and beautiful people in expensive clothes laughed and mingled under glittering chandeliers. I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and tried to look like I belonged. Maya, you came. I turned to see Adrian approaching, and my breath caught. He looked devastatingly handsome in a tailored tuxedo, but there was something in his eyes, a tension, a wariness that hadn't been there when we were young. I said I would. I replied, taking a sip of champagne for courage. You look beautiful, he said softly, and for a moment, we were 22 again, standing in his dorm room before our first formal dance. Adrian, darling, there you are. Elena appeared like a vision in a white cocktail dress that probably cost more than my car. Her smile was radiant, but her eyes were ice cold as they swept over me. Miss Chen, so glad you could make it. How brave of you to come. The emphasis on brave wasn't lost on me. Before I could respond, Elena linked her arm through Adrian's and began steering him away. Come, darling, the Wentworths want to congratulate us. You know how important they are to your father's firm. But Adrian didn't move. Elena, can we talk for a moment? Privately. Her smile tightened. Now? We have guests. It's important. Something flickered across Elena's face, fear maybe, or anger. Fine. 5 minutes. She turned to me with a saccharine smile. Do excuse us, Maya. Feel free to enjoy the champagne. I hear it's quite good, though perhaps a bit sophisticated for some palates. The balcony confession. I wandered through the party, feeling increasingly out of place. Former classmates I barely remembered nodded politely. Adrian's family friends looked through me like I was invisible. I was about to leave when I heard voices from the balcony, partially hidden by heavy curtains. You invited her? Why would you invite her? Elena's voice was sharp, stripped of its usual polish. Because I needed to see her, Elena. I needed to know if, Adrian's voice. If what? If you still had feelings for her? Don't be ridiculous. That was 15 years ago. You don't understand. There are things I never told you. Things about why I left. I knew I shouldn't listen, but I couldn't help myself. I moved closer to the curtain, my heart pounding. I know exactly why you left, Elena said, her voice dripping with venom. Your father made you leave. He told you Maya wasn't suitable for someone of your social standing. He threatened to cut you off, disown you if you didn't end it. And you chose money over love. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Adrian's father had made him leave? All these years, I'd thought it was my fault, that I'd done something wrong, that I wasn't enough. It wasn't that simple, Adrian said, his voice raw. You weren't there. You don't know what it was like. Oh, but I do, Elena said, and something in her tone made my blood run cold. I know because I was the one who told your father about Maya in the first place. Silence. Long and terrible. What did you just say? Adrian's voice was barely a whisper. The truth unveiled. We were at Stanford together, Adrian. Your father and mine were business partners. Did you really think our engagement was some romantic coincidence? Elena laughed, but it was a harsh sound. I was in your Shakespeare class too, you know, sitting in the back row, watching you moon over that bookish little. Nobody. I knew the moment I saw you that you were supposed to be mine. Elena, what did you do? I simply made your father aware that you were wasting your time with someone inappropriate. I showed him pictures of Maya, her background, her very ordinary family. I helped him understand that she would only hold you back from your true potential. And I made sure I was there to comfort you when he forced you to make the right choice. My legs felt weak. This couldn't be real. This woman had destroyed my life, had manipulated both of us, and she was standing there admitting it like it was something to be proud of. You manipulated me, Adrian said, his voice shaking with fury. You used my father too. I saved you, Elena interrupted. Look at where you are now. Look at what we've built together. You're about to become one of the most powerful lawyers in the state. We're the perfect couple. Everyone says so. Based on lies. Based on reality, Elena snapped. What were you going to do with Maya? Live in some cramped apartment? Struggle to make ends meet? She would have dragged you down to her level. I elevated you to yours. I couldn't listen anymore. I burst through the curtains onto the balcony, my hands shaking, tears streaming down my face. How could you? Elena spun around, her face a mask of shock that quickly morphed into cold calculation. How long have you been listening? Long enough, I said, my voice breaking. Long enough to know that you're a monster. The confrontation. A monster? Elena laughed, regaining her composure. No, dear. I'm a realist. You were never right for Adrian. You were a phase, a distraction. I simply helped him see the truth. You destroyed us, I said, looking at Adrian, who stood frozen, his face pale. You took away our choice, our future. Do you have any idea what you did to me? I spent years thinking I wasn't good enough, that I'd done something wrong. I stopped trusting people. I stopped believing in love. How dramatic, Elena said, rolling her eyes. You clearly survived. You have your little bookshop, your little life. You should be thanking me. If you'd ended up with Adrian, you'd be miserable by now. At least this way, you got to play the tragic heroine. Something inside me snapped. 15 years of pain, confusion, and self-doubt crystallized into pure anger. You want to know what's tragic, Elena? It's that you're so insecure, so convinced that you're not enough on your own, that you had to destroy two people's lives just to feel worthy. That's tragic. Elena's perfect mask cracked. How dare you? No, Adrian said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. He was looking at Elena like he was seeing her for the first time. How dare you? All these years, Elena. We've been together for 12 years, and it was all built on manipulation and lies. Adrian, darling, let's not be hasty. Don't call me that. He reached up and loosened his tie, like he couldn't breathe. Did you even love me, or was I just some prize to be won? Elena's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Of course I love you. Everything I did was because I love you. That's not love, I said quietly. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't destroy. Love gives people the freedom to choose. The revelation continues. Oh, please, Elena spat, her composure completely gone now. You want to talk about truth? Let's talk about truth. Adrian never tried to find you after he left, Maya. Did you ever wonder why? It's because I made sure he knew you'd moved on. I created fake social media profiles showing you dating other men, living your best life without him. I convinced him that breaking his heart would only hurt you more. Adrian's face went white. You did what? And that's not all, Elena continued, as if she couldn't stop herself now that the dam had broken. Those letters you sent, Maya? Oh yes, Adrian told me. About how he waited for letters that never came. They came. I intercepted every single one. 23 letters over 6 months. I have them in a box in my apartment. I've kept them all these years as insurance, proof that you were pathetic and desperate. The cruelty of it took my breath away. I had written letters. So many letters in those first months after he left. I'd poured my heart out, begging for explanations, for closure, for anything. And she'd stolen them all. You're insane, Adrian whispered. I'm thorough, Elena corrected. I knew that if you two ever communicated, you might find a way back to each other. So I made sure that bridge was completely burned. I made sure Maya thought you didn't care, and I made sure you thought she'd forgotten you. It was actually quite simple. Why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Why go to such lengths? Elena's smile was bitter. Because I knew even then that I'd never be your first choice, Adrian. I've always known. Every time you look at me, I can see you comparing. Every time we're together, I can feel you holding back. I thought if I gave it enough time, if we built a life together, you'd finally forget her. But here we are, and the moment she walks back into your life, you're ready to throw everything away. The scene. A crowd had gathered in the doorway. The music had stopped. Whispers rippled through the party like wildfire. I saw Adrian's father pushing through the crowd, his face red with anger or embarrassment or both. What is going on here? He demanded. Ask your son's fiancée, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Ask her about the lies she told you 15 years ago. Ask her about the letters she stole. Ask her about the life she manipulated. This is ridiculous, Elena said, trying to regain control. Adrian, tell them. Tell them she's crazy, that she's making things up because she's jealous. But Adrian was looking at his father with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of anger and betrayal and dawning realization. Did you know? Did you know what she did? His father shifted uncomfortably. Son, this isn't the time. Did you know? Adrian's voice rose, echoing across the suddenly silent balcony. I knew she brought concerns to my attention about your girlfriend, his father admitted. I knew she helped you see reason. But I didn't know about any letters, or... You didn't want to know, Adrian said bitterly. You were so determined to control my life that you didn't care how it happened. You just wanted me with someone you approved of, someone from the right family, someone who would look good at your fundraisers and impress your clients. I wanted what was best for you. No, Adrian said, his voice breaking. You wanted what was best for you. And I was too young and too scared to stand up to you. He turned to me then, his eyes full of pain and regret. Maya, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. I'm sorry I believed the lies. I'm sorry I didn't fight for us. The choice. The apology hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to accept it, to tell him it was okay, that we could start over. But 15 years of pain couldn't be erased with an apology, no matter how sincere. I need to go, I said, turning toward the door. Wait, Adrian grabbed my hand. Please, don't leave. Not like this. Like what, Adrian? You're engaged. You're building a life with someone else, even if that life is built on lies. What exactly do you want from me? I want. He stopped, looked at Elena, then back at me. I don't know. I just know that I can't let you walk away again without telling you the truth. I never stopped thinking about you. Not one single day in 15 years. Elena was right about that. Every relationship I've had, every moment with her, there's been this ghost between us. The ghost of what we could have been. Adrian. Elena's voice was sharp. Think about what you're doing. Think about our life, our plans, everything we've built. Built on lies, Adrian repeated. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the engagement ring, the one that had glittered so mockingly in my bookshop. He held it out to Elena. I can't marry you. I'm sorry, but I can't. The crowd gasped. Elena's face went through a rapid series of emotions. Shock, hurt, and then pure rage. You're making a mistake, she said, her voice low and dangerous. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, Adrian said quietly, is not making this choice 15 years ago. Elena looked between us, her perfect facade completely shattered. Then, with deliberate slowness, she turned to me. You think you've won? You think this is your happy ending? Adrian is weak. He's always been weak. He broke once, and he'll break again. And when he does, I'll be there to pick up the pieces, just like I always am. She snatched the ring from Adrian's hand and stormed inside, the crowd parting for her like the Red Sea. The whispers exploded into full conversations as guests tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Adrian's father stepped forward, his face thunderous. Adrian, you're throwing your life away for... Don't, Adrian said sharply. Don't say another word. I'm done letting you run my life. I'm done making decisions based on what's appropriate or what looks good. I'm 37 years old, and for the first time in 15 years, I'm making my own choice. The aftermath. I stood there, overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. Around us, the party was dissolving into chaos. Some guests were leaving, others were clustering in groups to gossip. I could hear fragments of conversation. Did you see her face? I always knew something was off about Elena. The Winters family will never recover from this scandal. Adrian took a step toward me. Maya, please. Let me explain everything. Let me tell you what really happened that day, why I. Not here, I said, looking around at the vulture-like faces watching our every move. Not now? This is too much, Adrian. It's too much too fast. Then when? Tomorrow? The next day? I've wasted 15 years. I don't want to waste another minute. I could see the desperation in his eyes, the same desperation I'd felt all those years ago when I stood outside his apartment in the rain. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd survived his leaving. I'd built a life without him. And I wasn't sure I was ready to risk my heart again, no matter how much he claimed to regret the past. I need time, I said finally. I need to process all of this. What Elena did, what your father did, what you did. It's not just about the apology, Adrian. It's about the fact that when it mattered most, you chose what was easy over what was right. You chose security over love. I was 22 and terrified, he said. My father threatened to cut me off completely. I had student loans, no job prospects without his connections. I thought I was doing the right thing, protecting our future by securing mine first. I thought I could come back for you once I was established, once I could stand on my own. But by then, Elena had convinced me you'd moved on, and I believed her because it was easier than facing what I'd done. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of lost years pressing down on me. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not that you left. It's that you let me think it was my fault. You let me spend years believing I wasn't good enough, that I'd done something wrong. That kind of pain doesn't just go away because you explain it 15 years later. I know, Adrian whispered. And I know I have no right to ask for another chance. But I'm asking anyway. Because the truth is, I've been half alive for 15 years. And seeing you again, even for just a few minutes in your bookshop, I felt more alive than I have in over a decade. The walk away. Rachel appeared at my elbow, her expression fierce and protective. We're leaving, she announced, taking my arm. Now. Wait, Adrian started. No, Rachel said firmly. You've had your say. You've unburdened your conscience. Now Maya needs time to figure out what she wants, not what you want or what Elena wants or what your father wants. Maya's turn to choose. She led me through the crowd, past the staring faces and whispered conversations. As we reached the exit, I glanced back one last time. Adrian stood on the balcony, illuminated by the soft glow of party lights, looking more alone than I'd ever seen him. His father was trying to pull him inside, but Adrian didn't move. He just watched me leave. In the car, Rachel started the engine but didn't drive. Are you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. She stole my letters, Ratch. All of them. She manipulated everything. She's a psychopath, Rachel said bluntly. But that doesn't mean Adrian is blameless. He still made his choice. I know. So what are you going to do? I looked out the window at the country club, at the life Adrian had built on lies and compromises. Then I thought about my bookshop, my small apartment, the simple but honest life I'd created for myself. I don't know that either, I admitted. Part of me wants to give him another chance, to see if what we had is still there. But another part of me is terrified that if I let him back in, he'll just hurt me again. Rachel reached over and squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Just promise me you'll decide for yourself. Not for him, not to prove anything to Elena, not to fix the past. Promise me you'll choose what makes you happy now, not what would have made you happy 15 years ago. Elena isn't done yet. What revenge does she have planned? Can Adrian prove he's changed? And will Maya find the courage to trust again? Subscribe to Twisted Heartstrings for the thrilling conclusion. L3 Part 3, Hearts Reclaimed. The morning after. Sunday morning arrived with gray skies and rain pattering against my bedroom window. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Elena's face, heard Adrian's apology, felt the weight of 15 years collapsing into one impossible moment. Rachel had stayed the night, sleeping on my couch downstairs. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen, the comforting sounds of coffee brewing and dishes clattering. I dragged myself out of bed and pulled on a sweater, catching my reflection in the mirror. I looked exactly how I felt: exhausted, confused, and slightly broken. "Coffee," Rachel announced as I stumbled downstairs, pressing a mug into my hands. "And I made pancakes because you need to eat something, and because stress cooking helps me think." I managed a weak smile. "What would I do without you?" "Probably make much better life decisions," she said, but her eyes were kind. We sat at my small kitchen table, the bookshop below us still closed for Sunday. Rain streaked the windows, turning the morning into something gray and introspective. My phone had been buzzing all morning. 17 missed calls from Adrian. 6 text messages. 2 voicemails I hadn't worked up the courage to listen to yet. And that threatening message from Elena that had kept me awake half the night. "You need to listen to what he has to say," Rachel said gently, reading my mind. "I'm not saying you need to forgive him or take him back. But you need closure, real closure, not the kind you've been living with for 15 years. Before I could respond, the bell downstairs chimed. Someone was at the bookshop door. On a Sunday, when I was clearly closed. The unexpected visitor. I went downstairs, preparing to tell whoever it was to come back tomorrow. Through the glass door, I saw Adrian standing in the rain, soaked to the bone, his expensive suit from last night replaced with jeans and a rain-darkened jacket. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door. "I know you said you needed time," he said immediately, water dripping from his hair. "But there are things you need to know, things I should have told you 15 years ago. And if I don't tell you now, I might lose the courage again." I should have sent him away. I should have protected my heart. But something in his eyes, a raw desperation I'd never seen before, made me step aside and let him in. Rachel appeared on the stairs, arms crossed. "I'll give you 30 minutes, she told Adrian sternly. "Then I'm coming back down here, and you're leaving." "Understood." He nodded, looking almost grateful for the clear boundary. Rachel disappeared back upstairs, though I knew she was probably hovering at the top of the stairs, ready to intervene if needed. Adrian stood in the middle of my bookshop, looking around like he was seeing it for the first time. "This place suits you," he said softly. "It's exactly what you always dreamed about. Remember? You used to talk about opening a bookshop where people could come and get lost in stories, forget their problems for a while." "Adrian, let me talk," he interrupted gently. "Please. I've been rehearsing this all night, and if I don't say it now, I never will." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite my sweater. "Fine. Talk. The full truth." He took a deep breath, and I could see his hands shaking slightly. "The day I left, my father called me into his office. Elena was there, and so was her father. They had pictures of us, Maya. Pictures from the coffee shop where we studied, from the park where we used to walk, from that little Italian restaurant where you loved the breadsticks. They'd been watching us, documenting our relationship." My stomach turned. Why? Because my father had already decided I was going to marry Elena. It had been arranged when we were teenagers, a business merger disguised as a relationship. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know until that day. He started pacing, the words tumbling out like he'd been holding them in for too long. "They told me that if I didn't end things with you immediately, they would destroy your family. Your father's small business, your mother's job at the hospital, your younger brother's scholarship to college. They had the power to do it, and they proved it. They showed me documents, made calls right there in the office. Within an hour, your father's biggest client canceled their contract. They said it was just a taste of what they could do." I felt sick. No, that's not possible. "It is when you have money and connections and no conscience," Adrian said bitterly. "My father said I had a choice. Walk away from you cleanly and your family would be safe, or fight for us and watch them lose everything. He gave me 2 hours to decide." Tears were streaming down my face now. "So you chose them?" "I chose you," he said desperately. "Don't you see? I chose your family's safety over my own happiness. I was 22, Maya. I didn't know how to fight men like that. I didn't have the resources or the knowledge or the power. So I did what they wanted. I sent you that text. I moved out of my apartment. I disconnected my phone. And I hated myself every single day after. But you stayed with Elena," I said, my voice cracking. "For 12 years, you stayed with her. Because she made sure I believed you'd moved on," Adrian said. She showed me fake social media profiles of you with other men. She told me you were engaged, then married, then happy. She said you told mutual friends that breaking up with me was the best thing that ever happened to you.